it means to be an ally in practice. And so then has a lot of important things to teach us. And so what we're really hoping is that you're going to be able to walk out of here with some real, insight and tips and tricks in terms of what does it mean, certainly to be an ally here at Google, but, just in your life generally to, enrich the lives of all of us. And so before I turn to Larry, just some housekeeping, which is that my colleague Chris will be monitoring the chat so that if you do have questions, love for it to be interactive. And then we'll also have questions at the end. And so Larry, so much for joining and sharing with us, and I'll turn it over to you.
There we are. Thanks so much, Ann, and I appreciate everybody joining. Everybody can see my slides and hear me okay. Just wanted to make sure that is good thumbs up. Perfect, perfect. Yeah, so again, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm excited to be here. As Ann mentioned, I'm over in Ruse. I work in health and performance, global program manager, do a lot of interactions, not only in cloud, but in a few other PAs as well. And at a high level, I sit at the intersection of holistic health and business enablement to help support flourishing impact is how I like to think about it, as well as well-being and what that looks like in different contexts in different ways. And so with that, here's a little bit more about me. And the visual that you see here just gets into the whole concept of intersectionality. Because like all of you, there are many different elements to who I am. And as you look at me, you may see certain elements, but under the surface, there's so much more. And so I'll just let the words populate here. These are a few things beneath the surface that you may not easily see. And all of these elements have provided a number of experiences that contribute to my journey. And it's important that we all look at each other through a holistic lens, what's above the surface, what you can see, as well as all the things that you cannot see, because all of these elements are very important to our respective journeys. So as we all know, we're here to talk about allyship. And ironically, as I was putting together these slides, this was the word of the year. I didn't know that from a couple years ago. So it's a big topic. It's something that's top of mind for many. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be in a conversation with you about it, because I personally believe that all of us can be allies to someone or something. And now before we dive in to the conversation, I actually wanted to quickly share about 3 people whose lives have deeply inspired me. So the first person you see here is Frederick Douglass. He was one of the most influential people of the entire 19th century. I consider him one of our founding fathers, in my opinion. If you want to learn more about him, here's a quick book recommendation. The book's name is Frederick Douglass, Prophet of Freedom by David Blight. And the next person is Malcolm X, or El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. And he was a titan in the American Civil Rights Movement. And in many ways, he was ahead of his time. And another quick book recommendation for him is the autobiography of Malcolm X, written by himself, as well as Alex Haley. And then the third person is Maya Angelou, famed poet, memoirist, and activist. And we're actually going to focus on her today. I was actually blessed to meet her way back a long time ago when I was in high school. And I'm actually going to tell you about that encounter and just frame our conversation around what I learned from that. And a quick book recommendation for her is the collected autobiographies of Maya Angelou. Now, one other little tee-up thing here before we dive even more into the story with Maya and about allyship is I wanted to tell you more about another amazing person within our network, and her name is Lisa Stefanik. And Lisa created this, this cohort experience called Team Dynamics. It's a training experience that emphasizes how we treat each other as we do the work. Now, I typically don't read my slides verbatim, but I think it's important just to read Lisa's words here on what Team Dynamics is. And so Team Dynamics is the ability to read the room, recognizing and engaging with the structure beneath a conversation so that you can guide the interaction through a productive decision-making process and an effective outcome. Effective teams accelerate organizational performance, learning, and culture. Team composition, the degree of alignment of the team and the norms of behavior are vital. Meeting processes and strong leadership are obvious enablers of effective teams. What is less obvious, though, is how the team's dynamics, the recurring habits that influence how team members interact with each other, can impact the quality of dialogue, decision-making, and trust. And so with that, I'm going to quickly go over the next 3 slides, just give you a little bit more about what team dynamics is. Then I'm going to overlay that within the story of when I met Maya Angelou. And one other thing too here, I'll share my slides at the end so that you can dive in more with it, as well as the link to connect with Lisa if you'd like to do it. And actually that little banner, Assessing in Action, is the actual link to the site to learn more information. So the first element to team dynamics is the roles that we play. And you can tell by the slide here, we have 4 different roles typically that we play. The role of move, oppose, follow, and reframe. And as you can just quickly read over the different slides, you can probably begin to identify how you might show up in some of your different interactions with people or in meetings or even on email, different things like that. Moving is kind of, pushing things forward. Opposing is, objecting, and those things are good to do. Follow is supporting. And then reframing is providing perspective or looking at things from a different perspective or a different point of view. The next element in team dynamics is the language that we use. The languages of action, the language of meaning, and the language of care. And as a quick description here, action is movement oriented. So, we need to do this by this date and done in this way, like quick bullets or things like that. The language of meaning generally points to context or background to just expand for deeper understanding for the audience. And the language of care is relationship oriented language. Being in touch with how somebody is feeling as you're doing different action items or explaining the context or the meaning, but keeping a pulse on how your audience is doing with that. And then the last element in team dynamics is the systems that govern our interactions. So we have a closed system, an open system, and an emergent system. And so as you can quickly see, closed systems are more ordered processes like project plans or, a stand-up meeting, things that kind of move along in a very efficient manner. An open system is open for, literally, as the word suggests, open, inviting interactions to really help shape and form the direction that you're trying to go. And emergent, in a similar way, is more of a brainstorming type of experience or feel. All of these different systems are extremely useful. None is better than the other. They're just different ways that we can actually show up and exist in our interactions. So that's a quick description of team dynamics. And now we'll get back to my encounter with Maya Angelou. So we have Maya here. And I imagine many of you probably are familiar with this quote that she had. Learn that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I got the chance to literally experience that from her myself. I don't remember when she said this quote versus when I actually met her, but I got a chance to experience this nonetheless. So now I wanted to just set the background for you here. Language of meaning, if you're kind of keeping up with the team dynamic stuff. So it's the fall of 1990 in my hometown, and this is Charlottesville, Virginia, by the way. This is my hometown where I'm from. That's the University of Virginia. And at this point in time, I actually didn't go to the University of Virginia. I went to the Naval Academy, but I'm a big UVA or Virginia fan because it's my hometown. I'm a high school senior at the time, and I was a member of a school club that focused on different academic achievement things to help prepare us for college and get us into different opportunities. And with that, we did a number of activities, and on occasion, we got invited to different events at the University of Virginia. And it was always fun to be around college students as a high school person because it's a chance to kind of act grown, kind of act, hang out with the big folks. And again, this is a picture of the UVA campus, and it was on a fall evening, and it looked pretty much like this this visual right here. And this is when Maya was invited to speak at UVA, and we were invited to participate, or not participate, but to attend the event. And so I was super excited. And to top it off, we were also invited to meet Maya Angelou backstage before the event kicked off. And so that was unbelievable. Celebrity, a chance to meet and connect with her. So when I got over to UVA, I remember the campus was buzzing with excitement. I don't remember how big the theater was, but the place was packed. Standing room only. Seemed like, I don't know, about 1,000 people were there. So me and my classmates, got the cue to go backstage to meet Maya. And so we go backstage, and the attendant goes to get Maya, and there she was across the room. And I was stoked. And that's when my encounter began. And so Maya turns to us once she realizes that we're there, and she is super excited to see us, almost to the point where that was the reason why she was in town, to see us, not to go speak in front of a bunch of people. That's how she made us feel. And this is before she actually talked to us. She blocked out all of the busyness of the pre-showtime activity that was happening around her, because she was about to go on stage here shortly. And she wanted to focus on us. And it was like a handful of us there to meet with her. And she connected with us for just a couple minutes apiece, one right after the other, before she went back to her prep time. And this brings me to my first point with having impact as an ally, is to be present. While she was present with us physically, she was actually present with us, if you know what I mean. She gave us her full attention, and she exuded a generous spirit. She sincerely wanted us to relax and enjoy our time with her. Now, from a team dynamics point of view, she was operating in a closed system situation because it's pre-show time. There's a number of specific things that need to happen before she literally has to go on stage. And if some of you have been in a pre-showtime situation, it can be kind of chaotic sometimes, right before you go out in front of a bunch of people. And so that was the environment that she was operating on. But irregardless of that, she gave us her full attention, and she was very generous with her spirit. And she was really excited again to see us. Also the thing that I noticed in remembering back, the attendant who was working with her was using the language of action with Maya. Hey, Maya, the group of high school kids are here. You got 15 minutes with them, and then we got to go back to this, and this. So very, here it is, here it is, here it is. And Maya demonstrated the roles of move and follow with her attendant because she agreed to it. Because she could have obviously said, no, I want to just spend all day with them. He was like, okay, I got this amount of time. I want to do this. We're in sync. Let's do it. And so I noticed that interaction kind of looking back on the situation. And the last big point I want to make with being present is that I noticed, as I reflect back on that interaction between them, is that her and the attendant were doing the actual work, the work to be done in that moment. And as they were doing that work, they were treating each other in a quality way. And so Maya, again, talks to each one of us. And then she comes to me to talk. And she greets me with this big warm handshake and a hug, almost like we were relatives. And she gives me like a steady eye contact throughout. And it wasn't intimidating, but it was more so warm and caring. And she was super curious about my interests and goals and visions for the future. And again, I'm just a high school guy. She's a big time celebrity. And as I was sharing my different thoughts, she was dropping pearls of wisdom, from her perspective and experience. And she also wanted to hear from me, my opinion on different things. She wanted dialogue and interaction versus just a one-way thing where I'm the big celebrity and here's what I got to say to you, young man. No, it was an interactive type of thing where she recognized me as a human being and she was genuinely wanting to engage with me. And so that whole thing was just surreal, being able to just chat it up with Maya like that. And that brings me to my second point, is to be curious. Maya had a sincere interest in me. And when you're curious and sincere, you'll naturally ask the right questions. Her eye contact seemed to be looking at me through the lenses of respect and empathy. And she was willing to be generous with what she could offer in terms of her wisdom and experiences to support me on my journey at that time. And she was willing to be engaged and influenced by others. Now, from a team dynamics perspective, as I look back on it, here's what I see what was happening. Although she was operating in a closed environment, a set amount of time to connect with us, she was being emergent and open as she was talking with us, kind of like the fundamentals of just improv, being able to respond in the moment. And in order to do this, you have to be present and ready and willing to interact as things are presented to you. And she used the language of meaning and care as she was interacting with us. And now, before she moved on to the next person, as we were closing out our conversation, she said the funniest thing to me. She looked at me in my eyes and she said, you're a handsome young man. And that blew my mind. I was like, oh my goodness, Maya Angelou called me handsome. Oh my goodness. Because again, I'm a little teenager and there's a big celebrity. And I was like, wow. So never forget how people made you feel. It's definitely, that happened to me. And then she moved on to the next person. And as she made these different connections with each of us, again, she was deeply curious about us as people. And again, she shared our thoughts and wanted our thoughts. And she also did this. She made connections from what one of my classmates said to what the other person said. So she held different pieces of the conversations that she had to make connections and add even more wisdom with that. She remembered our names. And again, this is all happening, and she's about to go on stage and talk to a bunch of people in a few minutes or in however many, in a short while. So, we wrap up our conversation as a group. We go back out to the auditorium, and a little while later, she comes out and she proceeds to kill it for 90 minutes. It's a combination of her reciting her poetry, sharing her points of view on different topics of the day, and inspiring the audience to dream big and go for it. And the thing is that she had no notes and there was no podium. It was just her and the stage. And she worked that stage in a magical and theatrical fashion. And she just took us all on a journey at that time. And I remember just looking and thinking like, wow, that's a professional right there. And the audience hung on her everywhere, on her every word. And they cheered with love and showed her thoughts. As she was going into something, somebody in the audience would yell out this famous poem that she wrote. And she would stop as she was doing what she was sharing, and she just would ask the crowd, you guys want me to recite that poem? And like everybody would cheer. And then she would recite the poem in a very dramatic fashion as people were, cheering and just hanging on her every word. And then she would go back to the point that she was making before. That's some serious talent for sure. But it leads me to my next point, is to be intentional. Maya had a plan and a focus. She involved others, and she was agile and flexible as she executed her plan. And she was willing to pivot and change as she engaged the audience. Now, from a team dynamics perspective, as I look back on that, what I remember with that, she was using an emergent flow within a closed system. And, she had a set amount of time to speak and a set number of topics that she wanted to cover. But she skillfully used all those roles, the languages, and the systems in her delivery and engaged the audience as she did it. Now, some of you might be wondering, did she call anybody else handsome or beautiful? Nope, I was the only one. Now, to sum it up, this is my last slide here. In order to have impact as an ally, or even, I'll just expand it, just have it as a human being, be present, be curious, and be intentional. And you want to do that, kind of wrap this in a bow here, while being sincere, empathetic, respectful, and generous. Now, I referenced team dynamics as I was talking. That's a practical way, a training experience to literally practice the skills of that in an intentional way. And I can actually help you be a better ally, better parent, better spouse, better brother, sister, whatever the different intersectionalities that you have in your life, it can help to enhance those touch points and interactions. Now, the last thought I'll have here before we do questions or conversation here is you notice I didn't speak a lot about the specifics of the actual conversation that Maya and I had, outside of me being handsome. I took that part away as a teenager. But like the interactions and all that, they were very valuable to me at the time. But going back to her quote, how she made me feel, and again, this is 1990. I'm dating myself how old I am, but this is 1990, and the effect of how she made me feel is like that long tail of impact. And I just share that to say, you know, her quote is true for sure, but we can have that same level of impact as we interact with others, as allies, colleagues, coworkers, friends, etc. And so with that, I appreciate you letting me take some of your time to tell you about the time when I met Maya Angelou.
Larry, thanks so much. That was really great. I already learned a lot, and it was just a great story too. Would love to hear from folks. You know, if you want to raise your hand and just ask Larry a question, or just looking for an open forum here. So happy to take any questions. Teresa, go ahead.
Teresa.
It's so good to see you, Larry. Thank you for coming to spend time with us. And I don't know if it's as much a question, but I think what I found in working with you is that you really embody that ability to have that deep connection with everybody that we work with, and really appreciate how much you told that story. And I could almost feel myself in the auditorium with you and imagine how it would feel as a teenager going through that experience. And I think it's such an important reminder for all of us that that feeling that now I have was shared from Larry's experience, which was shared from Maya's experience. And we did all of that virtually. So maybe my question for you is, you know, in this virtual world that we're in, how would you advise us to continue to embody that feeling and connect with people when we don't have the option to be there in the auditorium?
Yeah, that's a great question, Teresa. It's great to see you as well. And I'm just going to reflect back from when the world shut down 2020. We were all adjusting. And the thing that I would do is, you know, mention the things that I just shared about, but in a virtual situation, the 3D component or the physical component is minimized. And as much as comfortable, you know, just share about different things in your background. I'm in the office now, but, you know, when I was at home, you know, there's different little things that I would either not necessarily accidentally show, but they're just in the background, or I would intentionally place on my desk as conversation pieces. And that's, you know, a little bit of insight into who Larry is beyond work. You know, again, you have to be comfortable with who you're talking to with that. But that's just another way to do it, as well as in a virtual world, the dimensions of back-to-back stuff, or like being on the screen all day long, sometimes literally, you know, giving people grace, if you will, or extra flexibility to adjust in that way. Because the other thing with the virtual world is that the in-person casual collisions that typically happen when you're in the office goes down, and then you have to engineer a casual collision, which can take up time on your calendar. And so, so those are just some ideas that I've done, and I'm still learning with it too.
I appreciate that so much. And I can remember the special things in your home office. And now I feel even more special that I got to see them.
Well, if no one else has something, Larry, I'd love to hear from you. I think that, you know, myself included, everybody has had an experience where, from an allyship perspective, then, you know, somebody is being talked over in a meeting, or like that, you know, something is said that is, you know, sort of disrespectful or something like that. And then someone like myself is in the meeting and then is sort of unsure of what to do and how to best support that person. And then like the meeting's over, and then you think about all kinds of ways they could have maybe done something different or done something better. I'd love to hear from you about, like, you're in that moment, you're intentional, you want to do something, and you want to do the right thing, and you want to do the right thing for the person that you see is being, you know, minimized or, you know, not respected in the meeting. And love to hear from you about how to think about something like that.
Yeah, and with our team, with the team dynamics things that I was sharing earlier, we actually did the training. It was great, and we intentionally practiced those different skills and brought them into meetings. But I'll start with this psychological safety. So being able to, in my opinion, I think team dynamics can help to build the skill to create stronger or more psychological safety. But in those interactions that you're talking about, where you literally see it happening, I call it one of those micro moments of courage to just speak up, and you may object or oppose the person speaking over, or just, in a respectful way, just say, hey, person A, person B hasn't finished sharing yet. Can you just let them share their thoughts? Or pose it as a question. And then the other thing to begin to read, and this is what I learned from team dynamics, is okay, what are the dynamics that are the invisible dynamics that you can see? It's like a two phrase thing of the person might have cut the other person off because they're probably in the language of action. And time's running out, and they got 4 things to do. They got 4 things to bring up, and there's like 5 minutes left. This other person might be in the language of meaning, or like wanting more context about item number 2, but they need to get to 3, 4, and 5.
Sure.
So that might have been what's happening underneath the table, or the invisible stuff. And so if you're understanding, and if you're noticing that, that's what you can just ask. Is like, yeah, I see we have 5 minutes left. You got a few other things to do, and that gives person A the opportunity to explain. And then from there, it helps to hopefully reveal more. Because I guess the unsaid assumption is that we all want to do well. There's no sabotage or things like that happening. Like, we'll just skip over that. But if we're all trying to do the same thing or go in the right direction, okay, person A, okay, they really needed to do this with this. And then from there, if you just at least call it out, I mean, if you run out of time, you run out of time in a meeting. That's a closed system. But, from there, you at least understand from a relational aspect where person A is coming from, where person B is coming from. And then, yeah, you got to find time to finish working on the actual work if you ran out of time.
I love that, because what I'm hearing is, assume best intentions, right? That the person is not meaning to actually, cut someone off necessarily, that they're with the language of action, but then there's a ways for you to insert yourself respectfully in there to bring it back to that person, or something to that effect. Thank you. That's great. So I want to open it up for anybody else. Chris, go ahead.
Yes, hi, Larry. Thanks a lot for putting this on. And I had a question on one of the last slides you had. You talked about being empathetic, and I value attributes like that as a team, as everyone being on a team. But in other organizations other than this, I feel like there's a pretty good dynamic in most cases here. I've heard people say things like it's better to be feared than respected, especially if you're managing or leading a group of people. And I just wanted to see what you thought about that, or what a good response would be that someone brings something up like that.
Yeah, so that is one way to do it. I'll start with that. I actually pulled from another experience. I went to the Naval Academy for college, so active duty as a naval officer for 5.5 years. And the leadership style, we learned a few different leadership styles going through that experience. The college as well as being on active duty. There is the dictator approach. You can get results that way. It's possible. I personally subscribe to more of a servant leader mentality. And this is where, and again, my fundamental belief is that relationships is the oil that keeps the machine going. And through that, the work can get done because trust is built. And then I believe it unlocks a level of, from a business point of view, business velocity that can accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. When it comes to fear, in my opinion, fear is something, if you try to govern through fear or lead through fear, that's something that's probably going to come back to bite you sooner or later. If you govern through relationships by being vulnerable, wise and vulnerable as you can, because what are the things that's driving or creating the fear, in you or in the dynamic or the situation or the team? And from that, inviting others in, because if we're all, on the same team, we're all, smart, capable, skilled. So like the capabilities are there to tackle whatever it is you're trying to do on a project or something like that. but having that level of trust, and again, as the leader, as a servant leader, creating the environment to just help others thrive is the quickest way probably to describe servant leadership. So that's how I would answer that. So I guess I respectfully see it a different way, but I do acknowledge that, getting stuff done through fear can work. It comes at a very high cost, in my opinion, but it's possible.
Great, thank you. It's a good response to give. I wasn't sure what to say when brought up that kind of question before, but yeah, it does very short-term thinking. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? All right. Well, Larry, thank you so much. Really appreciate your insights and you coming and sharing this with us. And I certainly learned something. I hope all of you that took the time to attend did. And thank you again so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for letting me attend. I really appreciate it. Oh, maybe one.
Oh, Jordan, you had something? Nope, guess not. Okay, wonderful. Okay. Thanks again, everybody, and especially you, Larry. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
Take care.